All right, let's dive in. Today we're heading to the Sahara Desert to learn about the Addax antelope, a creature so incredibly adapted to its harsh environment. It's almost unbelievable. We'll be uncovering some fascinating facts from an excerpt today, and we'll also look at the efforts to protect this critically endangered species, which is even more fascinating.
Yeah, the Addax really shows how ingenious nature can be, but also how much of an impact humans have had on the planet.
Okay, so before we talk about the threats they're facing, what makes them so special? Like, what should we picture when we think of an Addax?
Well, imagine an antelope, but with these incredible spiraled horns. That can grow up to 85 centimeters long. And their coat is almost like a chameleon's. It changes with the seasons. It's white or pale beige in the summer to reflect all that intense desert heat. And then it shifts to a grayish brown in the cooler winter months.
Whoa, I've never heard of an animal changing its coat color with the seasons. How does that even work?
It's all about regulating their body temperature. That lighter summer coat reflects sunlight, so it keeps them cool. And then the darker winter coat helps them absorb more heat. It's just one of the many ways they've adapted to survive the extreme conditions of the Sahara.
That's amazing. And what are those broad hooves we see? I've seen pictures of them. They look almost oversized for their body.
Yeah, you're right to notice that. Those wide, flat hooves are perfectly designed for navigating the shifting sands of the Sahara. It's like having built-in snowshoes for the desert. They distribute the addax's weight so they don't sink in the soft sand, and that allows them to move efficiently, even in the most challenging terrain.
Okay, so they're clearly built for this environment. But I'm still wondering about the lack of water in the Sahara. How do they find enough to drink?
Well, that's where the addax's adaptations get really remarkable. They can actually get most of the water they need from the plants they eat. Things like desert grasses, shrubs, succulents like acacias, and even tubers.
Hold on. So they basically eat their water. That's incredible.
It is. It's a unique adaptation that allows them to survive in areas where other animals just couldn't. I mean, think about it this way. While other desert animals spend a significant amount of energy searching for water sources, the addax has evolved to just extract moisture directly from its food. It's a brilliant conservation strategy that allows them to thrive in one of the driest places on Earth.
That's a much better strategy than carrying a water bottle around everywhere, that's for sure. So with all these adaptations, what's their daily life like?
Well, to avoid that scorching daytime heat, they're mostly nocturnal. During the day, they seek shelter in shallow depressions in the sand, just waiting for the cooler night temperatures to emerge.
So they're like the original desert party animals coming alive when the sun goes down.
Exactly. And when they do come out, they're not alone. Addax are social creatures. They live in small herds led by a dominant female.
A matriarchal society. I'm always fascinated by how animals' social structures work. Are they fast, like some of the other antelopes you see darting across the savanna on nature shows?
Actually, that's where the addax's adaptations, or the ones that have served them so well for so long,
Yeah.
become a bit of a liability. Compared to some of their swifter antelope cousins, they're relatively slow-moving, which makes them vulnerable to predators, both animal and human.
That makes my heart sink a bit. Knowing how well they've adapted to this unforgiving environment, it seems almost unfair that something as basic as speed could be their downfall.
It is a cruel twist of fate, and it's why the addax is now critically endangered. Yeah, it really highlights how delicate that balance of survival can be.
Oh.
You have this creature that's perfectly adapted to its environment, yet a single factor, in this case, speed, can just completely shift its fate.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that evolution is an ongoing process, and what works in one era might not be enough in another, especially when human actions come into play. So if they're so vulnerable now, what exactly is threatening their survival?
Well, historically, overhunting played a major role. Nomadic hunters in the Sahara, they prized them for their meat and those impressive horns. And sadly, even with their endangered status, illegal poaching continues to be a problem.
It's so disheartening that something as senseless as poaching still threatens a species that's teetering on the brink of extinction. Are there other modern threats that compound this issue?
Absolutely. Habitat disruption is a major concern. Oil drilling infrastructure projects and general human encroachment on their territory all contribute to their decline. I mean, imagine having your home constantly disrupted, resources depleted, and familiar landmarks just disappearing. It's a stressful and disorienting experience, and it takes a toll on the addax population.
It sounds like a perfect storm of challenges, both from our past actions and current pressures. So with all these factors working against them, is there any hope for the addax? What are people doing to help them?
There is hope, and it lies in a multifaceted approach. Firstly, national parks and reserves in countries like Chad and Niger. They're providing much-needed safe havens. These protected areas offer a degree of security from poaching and habitat disruption, giving the addax a chance to recover.
That sounds promising. But it can't be a complete solution, can it? Protected areas are only as good as the enforcement protecting them.
You're exactly right. So alongside protecting their natural habitat, we're also turning to captive breeding programs in zoos and wildlife reserves. These programs have been remarkably successful in increasing their numbers.
Captive breeding programs always feel like a bit of a double-edged sword to me. They offer a safety net, but it also means these animals aren't truly free. What are the challenges and considerations involved in these programs?
It's a complex issue for sure. Maintaining genetic diversity is crucial. We don't want a population that's susceptible to disease or inbreeding. So zoos and reserves meticulously track lineage and coordinate animal transfers to maintain a healthy gene pool. And another aspect is replicating their natural environment as closely as possible to prepare them for life back in the wild.
I imagine that's quite a task, recreating the vastness and subtle complexities of the Sahara Desert in a zoo enclosure must require a lot of ingenuity.
Oh, it absolutely does. And when it comes to reintroduction, we can't just release them anywhere. We have to carefully select locations with enough food and water, minimal poaching risk,
Yeah.
and limited habitat disruption.
So it's a bit like finding the perfect Addax real estate. You need a good neighborhood, access to amenities, and hopefully friendly neighbors.
You could say that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the success of these programs depends on collaboration. Zoos, conservationists, governments, and even local communities, all working together. It's a global effort that requires dedication and resources.
Speaking of local communities, what role did they play in protecting the Addax?
Oh, their role is absolutely vital. They are the eyes and ears on the ground, the ones with generational knowledge of the land and its inhabitants. So engaging these communities ensures long-term success. Often they understand the addax habits better than anyone. They can help monitor populations, deter poaching, and even participate in reintroduction efforts.
So it's about empowering them to be stewards of their own environment,
Yeah.
recognizing their expertise and giving them a voice in the conservation process.
Precisely. And this approach extends beyond just the addax. Protecting one species often means protecting an entire ecosystem. When we conserve the addax habitat, we're also protecting countless other plant and animal species that call the Sahara home.
It reinforces that idea that everything is connected. The addax's fate is intertwined with the fate of the entire Saharan ecosystem.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that conservation isn't just about saving individual species. It's about protecting the intricate web of life that sustains us all.
Before we move on, I have to ask. You mentioned that addax live in herds led by a dominant female. I find that fascinating. It's not something you see every day in the animal kingdom. Can you tell us more about how this matriarchal society works?
Of course. You see, the dominant female typically leads the herd in their search for food and water, making decisions about where they graze, when they rest, and how they move through the desert. This leadership role likely evolved due to the challenging environment. Her experience and knowledge are crucial to the herd's survival.
So she's like the CEO of the herd, navigating the desert and ensuring everyone thrives.
That's a great analogy.
Oh.
And while she leads the way, the males play a crucial role in protecting the herd from predators. It's a remarkable example of teamwork and shared responsibility within a social structure.
This entire deep dive is changing how I think about antelopes. I'm also curious about how they communicate with each other. It's not like they can just chat over a cup of tea in the desert.
Well, they might not have tea parties, but they do have a fascinating array of communication methods. Addax use a variety of vocalizations, including grunts, snorts, and whistles, to communicate within the herd. They also use scent marking, leaving behind olfactory messages to establish their territory and communicate with other addax herds.
It's amazing to think about these silent conversations happening across the vastness of the Sahara. But returning to the challenges they face, what are some of the specific obstacles conservationists encounter when trying to protect them?
Well, the sheer scale and remoteness of the Sahara Desert poses a significant hurdle. Tracking and monitoring addax populations across such a vast expanse is incredibly difficult. It's not like they're congregating in easily accessible areas.
Right, it's not like you can just hop in a Jeep and count them all.
Exactly. We often rely on aerial surveys, which are expensive and logistically challenging. And even when we know where they are, protecting them from poachers in these remote areas is a constant struggle. It requires a combination of high-tech surveillance, dedicated ground patrols, and strong community involvement.
It sounds like a Herculean effort.
It is. But the dedication and passion of those working to protect the Addax are truly inspiring. It's a testament to our collective responsibility to safeguard these incredible creatures.
It makes you realize that conservation efforts often involve a lot of unseen work and tireless dedication.
You're absolutely right. And it highlights the importance of public awareness and support. The more people understand the plight of the Addax and other endangered species, the more we can rally support for conservation initiatives and make a tangible difference.
It's a reminder that every individual can play a role in these efforts, even from afar. Before this deep dive, I admit I knew very little about the Addax. Now I'm completely captivated by their story. It's amazing how focusing on a single species can open a window into a whole ecosystem.
It really does. It's about understanding the interconnectedness of life and recognizing that even seemingly insignificant creatures can have a profound impact on their environment. The Addax's story reminds us that we're all part of a delicate balance, and protecting that balance is essential for the health of our planet.
Yeah, it's like that saying, everything is connected. You know, we might not think we have much in common with an antelope living in the Sahara Desert, but their story really does impact us all.
And in turn, our actions impact their survival. It's a powerful reminder of our responsibility to protect the diversity of life on our planet. So if our listeners are feeling inspired to help, what are some concrete things they can do to support Addax conservation?
Yeah, what can we do? I know I'm feeling motivated to make a difference after learning all of this.
Well, there are many ways to get involved. You can support organizations working on the ground in Africa, like the Sahara Conservation Fund or the Zoological Society of London. These organizations are doing crucial work to protect Addax habitat, combat poaching, and implement reintroduction programs.
Donating to reputable organizations is always a great way to make a direct impact. Are there other things people can do? Maybe things that don't necessarily involve donating money?
Absolutely. You can advocate for stronger anti-poaching measures and responsible land use policies. Contact your elected officials, sign petitions, and raise awareness on social media. Even just talking to friends and family about the Addax and their plight can make a difference. Spreading awareness is key to building a broader base of support for conservation efforts.
So true. Word of mouth is powerful. And if you're lucky enough to live near a zoo with an Addax conservation program, definitely pay them a visit.
Yeah, it's a fantastic way to see these magnificent creatures up close and to learn more about the efforts to protect them. Zoos play a vital role in conservation education and research, and they often have opportunities for people to get involved directly.
This whole deep dive has been such an eye-opener for me. I went from knowing next to nothing about the Addax to feeling completely invested in their survival. What stands out to you most about the Addax story?
For me, it's their resilience. They've evolved to thrive in such a challenging environment, facing down scorching heat, limited water, and predators. It's a testament to the power of adaptation and the tenacity of life. But their story is also a sobering reminder of the impact we have on the natural world. You know their fate, like the fate of so many other species, is now intertwined with our own choices.
I agree. It's almost tragic how they've overcome so much, only to now face this existential threat because of us. But your point about resilience is well taken. If the Addax can adapt to the harshness of the Sahara, maybe we can adapt our behaviors to be more responsible stewards of the planet.
That's the hope, isn't it? We have the power to change course, to make choices that support conservation and biodiversity. The Addax story is a call to action, a reminder that our actions have consequences, and that we have a responsibility to act as caretakers of this incredible planet we share.
Well said. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about how the Addax's story is really a window into a whole ecosystem. What else can we learn by looking through this Addax window?
Well, it highlights the importance of desert ecosystems. Deserts might seem barren at first glance, but they're teeming with life that has evolved in fascinating ways to survive. And the Addax plays an important role in that web of life. They're prey animals, providing food for larger predators like lions and hyenas. Their grazing habits also help to shape the desert landscape, influencing plant diversity.
It's amazing how these seemingly small actions can have a ripple effect throughout the entire ecosystem. It really drives home that interconnectedness we were talking about.
Exactly. The Addax's story reminds us that even seemingly small or insignificant creatures can have a profound impact on their environment, and that protecting them is about protecting the whole delicate balance of that ecosystem.